A second set of flotilla is headed to the Middle East in the direction of Iran to bolster the US naval power in the region. As we know, it's all set up for one particular set of people, the Iranians. The Iranians seem to be a headache for the USA, and excuses seem to have run out for invasion or another strike upon Iran. Remember, we were to see help of the so-called Iranian protesters, and that seemed to have died down, and that excuse is no more substantial any longer. Something else would have to be generated to invade Iran. For now, the excuses are not clear. Unless, of course, what have always been the excuse of nuclear, the excuse of missile problems and their ranges, and the problem of sponsoring terror groups around the world, as claimed. Correct or not? That's not the point. Iran may be invaded in a couple of days, in weeks, or maybe in months. It's interesting to know that the naval buildup appears to be something similar to what happened in Venezuela in the early part of the month of January 2026. Slowly, the naval build up around it, and then it starts seizing oil tankers heading out of Venezuela. Something similar is about to happen in Iran. But there's a problem to this. Iran can decide to stop shipment of oil from the region as a whole, because Iran have the capability to short oil movement within the Strait of Hormuz. And the naval asset, the US naval asset, are lodged somewhere around far in the Indian Ocean or in the Arabian Sea. That's to say, whatever oil tanker that is moving out of the Strait of Hormuz, either going in the direction of the Indian Ocean or just floating in the Arabian Sea, but most likely it may be taking a course through the Indian Ocean, because that's the most easiest access to get to China. Using other routes may be very, very long. It may be a distance that would cost a lot and make the whole oil shipment from Iran to China very expensive. India as well are buying oil from Iran. And that's to say, strategically, the US may have successfully set up a blockade around the Indian Ocean, preventing any oil tanker from Iran passing through that course. Well, Iran have options. They can choose to use some dark fleets, disguise them as tankers coming from one of the US allies in the region, and just blend in and move towards its direction. But another problem poses for the USA. Unlike Venezuela, it has no ports to drag these oil tankers when it seizes one. Taking the long route to dragging this oil tanker seizure to the America or to the USA is really going to be a difficult thing to do. It could be attacked on the way easily by militant group who could have capabilities from inland and shoot at this in the direction of these escorts. But again, the naval buildup is massive, and the US have a lot of capabilities to really fight back and suppress whatever enemy fire that could be coming from any direction. But the Strait of Hormuz accounts for about 20% of the global oil traffic from that region. If Iran decides to shut the Strait of Hormuz, it's really going to cause a significant shock in the global oil market. Iran have the capability to stop oil flow from these region. It has two things: either bring oil production in these countries to zero, and the more reason you seem to be seeing some cooperation from the Gulf states and not allowing the US to its air bases to strike Iran, because Iran can bring its oil production capacity to zero, and it can do it another way by setting sea mines. That is, whatever ship is moving out or into the strait may encounter some sea mines and get their hull smashed. And that could be a problem. And this would be automatically oil prices are going to skyrocket because shipping firm would need to have more cost on insurance in insuring these oil tankers going into this region to bring in oil resources or crude resources. But there's another side that the US may not be looking into. Iran, with the Belt Road and Silk Initiative of the Chinese, they've created an alternative route away from the sea. That's to say, Iran may not be affected really much because there's a railway route from Tehran through Tajikistan and a couple of other countries, about five of it, onto China. That route serves as an important conduit. It is functional, and Iran is receiving freight from China, Iran, to and fro from this point. So while the US may successfully blockade shipment through this strait, Iran may take another route, the railway route. But there's another problem to this. If you could remember what happened to the Nord Stream pipe, the pipeline connecting Russia to Europe, supplying gas to Europe at a more cheaper price, that was the very first part of infrastructure that was attacked in the early phase of the Russian-Ukraine conflict. That pipe was blown up on the sea, and such could be done as well to this railway connecting Iran to China. And it passes through about 5 countries, and some of these countries are not very much secure as Tehran, Russia, or China would be. So the possibility of an attack within this country like Tajikistan, Afghanistan, and a host of others, these countries cannot exactly secure their rail lines, and it can be a problem for this infrastructure. It can get blown up by some non-state actors or simply hire some individuals from within to carry out such job, and Iran may have problems shipping their crude and other goods coming in and out of Iran. This could just be some kind of Mossad operation or CIA operation that could send an agent to go set up an explosive on these tracks and blow them up. So this also, it poses another challenge to this trade route, and it will be really difficult in securing this rail line. It's a long stretch, and that will require a lot of resources in trying to secure this track. It's a very good alternative trade route for Iranian oil shipment to China. But how about India? Are they going to temporarily lose their buyers from India in the moment? Well, all these seem to be really building a pressure up upon Iran to draw them to the table to negotiate. And if you have been following this from the very time Trump took power and his introduction of the maximum pressure, you wouldn't exactly blame Iran much for refusing to come on the table this time to discuss. The other time when they trusted Trump, not very much, but to some, of course, extent, they were in a negotiation with the United States and partners, only for its scientists and generals to be murdered. Iranians were caught unawares. They were made to believe that a strike was not going to happen. They were reassured, but this was a clear betrayal. And asking a people that you betrayed to come in for another negotiation, it's really going to be difficult. The trust is not there. And going this route of military and trying to pressure them into a deal, such a deal is only going to favor the United States in this sense. A deal is supposed to be mutual, where each side benefits. But in the case where you have to bully people into what you want, that's really not going to be a very fair deal for anyone. An Iranian must have smelled this, and they're really not. They're not willing to give in to another trap to fall in. And part of this negotiation, or the list of what the US is having to be negotiated about, a deal to be arrived at, is Iran limiting its missile ranges, which Iran have clearly stated that that's a red line for it. It's not going to discuss its missile program. It's part of its national defense, and that's not up for negotiations. And also about Israel, of course, recognizing Israel. I don't think Iran should be forced into recognizing Israel. This is something that could perhaps go in a much more better way than going into war, because it's not going to favor US, Iran, neither is it going to favor the region. And this is going to really set our world in an economic crisis that's going to implode in a lot of other nations and going to have an effect on oil prices globally. If you enjoy my videos, be sure to like, share, and don't forget to subscribe, and see you in the next video.